The mahogany-paneled office was intimidating, a testament to wealth and meticulous taste. Ryan Caldwell sat in his motorized wheelchair behind a sleek desk, his sharp eyes fixed on the resume in front of him. "I need a caregiver, Miss Simmons, not a savior," he said coldly, his voice slicing through the tense atmosphere. Leah Simmons, standing across from him, forced herself to hold his gaze. Her fingers were clenched beneath the table, her knuckles white as she struggled to keep her voice steady. Doubt flickered briefly in her mind, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the opportunity this job could provide for her son. "With all due respect, Mr. Caldwell, I'm not here to save anyone. I'm here because I'm good at my job, and you pay well." A flicker of surprise crossed Ryan's face, quickly masked by his usual detached demeanor. He slid the resume across the desk with practiced ease. "Your qualifications are impressive, but why did you leave St. Mary's Rehabilitation Center 6 months ago?" "The night shifts didn't align with raising my son," Leah replied evenly, though she felt her cheeks flush. "Ethan is 9. He needs me present, not just awake." Ryan's fingers drummed on the armrest of his wheelchair, the only sign of movement below his chest. "This position requires living on site 5 days a week. What about your son?" "Ethan would stay with me during school breaks," she said firmly. "Otherwise, he'll split time between here and my mother's house, which is closer to his school." Ryan studied her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back, his tone a mix of challenge and resignation. "Fine. You start Monday. Don't make me regret this, Ms. Simmons." Leah nodded, her heart pounding despite her calm exterior. As she left the room, Ryan's voice stopped her one last time. "Tell your son the library here has an excellent collection of engineering books. He might find them useful when he visits." Leah allowed herself a small smile as she stepped out. She had the job. Now, she just needed to convince herself she could handle whatever came next. The small apartment kitchen felt even more cramped than usual as Leah stirred a pot of pasta, the flickering overhead light casting uneven shadows. Across the table, Ethan sat with a scowl, pushing peas around his plate. "Why can't you just come home every night?" His voice wavered, breaking Leah's resolve for a brief moment. "Because Mr. Caldwell needs 24-hour care, sweetie," she said gently, reaching over to still his restless hands. "This job pays enough for us to finally get you into that robotics program you've been dreaming about." Ethan's eyes lit up momentarily before dimming again. "The one with the coding labs?" "That's the one," Leah forced a smile, even as the thought of the camp's $3,000 price tag made her stomach clench. "And maybe piano lessons too, if you still want them." He sighed, slumping back in his chair. "But I'll only see you on weekends." "During school breaks, you'll come stay with me," Leah added quickly. "The house has a huge library, even better than your school's. You'll love it." Ethan's face scrunched in thought. "Better than the school library?" "Much better." Leah leaned forward, her voice softening. "And I've already talked to Grandma. She's letting you set up your own space in her craft room." "The one with the creepy doll collection?" Ethan wrinkled his nose, finally cracking a small smile. "We'll move them somewhere else," Leah said, laughing despite herself. She stood to clear the dishes, but Ethan grabbed her hand. "Mom, promise you won't forget about me when you're taking care of him." The words hit her like a blow. Leah knelt beside him, meeting his serious gaze. "Listen to me, Ethan. Everything I do is for you. This job is no different. You are my priority, always." Ethan hesitated before whispering, "Okay." Later, as Leah sat at the kitchen table counting bills, she glanced at the acceptance letter from Ryan's estate. The numbers promised a better future, but the cost felt heavier than she anticipated. Leah adjusted her uniform, mentally running through Ryan's care plan for the day. It was her first morning on the job, and she wasn't about to make a single mistake. As she approached Ryan's master bathroom, she could feel the tension in the air. "I can manage the shirt," Ryan muttered tersely, his fingers fumbling with the buttons of his tailored dress shirt. Leah stepped back slightly, keeping her tone calm. "Of course. I'll prepare your shower items." The bathroom was a masterpiece of modern accessibility. Sleek grab bars that doubled as art, a seamless shower chair, and state-of-the-art equipment designed to blend functionality with elegance. Every detail whispered of wealth and an unwavering need for independence. "The water temperature should be 98 degrees, Ryan began, his voice clipped. "Medium pressure, pulse setting on the handheld showerhead," Leah interrupted, reading directly from his care plan. "And the shampoo for sensitive skin to prevent irritation. I've got it." Ryan's hand stilled as he looked up at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "You actually read the entire care plan?" "Twice," Leah replied, stepping toward the shower. "It's my job." Ryan's lips tightened, but he didn't argue. "I'll transfer myself to the shower chair." Leah nodded, watching carefully as he positioned his wheelchair and locked the brakes. His upper body strength was impressive, a testament to his rigorous physical therapy routine. But halfway through the transfer, his grip slipped. Without hesitation, Leah stepped in, providing just enough support to steady him. Their eyes met briefly, his filled with frustration and a glimmer of embarrassment, hers calm and unwavering. "Good catch," Ryan said quietly, settling into the shower chair. "Good technique," Leah replied, stepping back to give him space. "Though your left grip seemed weaker, have you been overcompensating with your right side?" Ryan looked at her, startled. "How did you—" "8 years of experience," she said with a small shrug. "And your left deltoid is slightly less developed. We should incorporate targeted exercises into your PT routine." For the first time, Ryan's lips quirked into the faintest hint of a smile. "Are you always this observant?" "Only when I'm being paid to be," Leah shot back, handing him the handheld showerhead. "Now, would you like to start with the shampoo, or should I remind you of that part of your care plan too?" By the time they finished, a tentative rhythm had been established. Ryan accepted her assistance with less resistance, and Leah maintained her professionalism, ensuring his dignity remained intact. As she helped him adjust his tie before his first video conference of the day, Ryan broke the silence. "Mrs. Henderson usually brings coffee halfway through the meeting." "I know," Leah replied. "Page 17 of the care plan. But I make better coffee, and you prefer it stronger." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "How do you know that?" "The residue in your coffee maker," she said simply, moving toward the door. "Observing is part of my job." As the door closed behind her, Leah heard something unexpected, a quiet chuckle. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The steady hum of Ryan's motorized wheelchair filled the study as he reviewed blueprints on his tablet. Leah stood nearby, organizing his schedule when her phone buzzed. She sighed, reading the message. "Mom, no sitter. What do I do?" Minutes later, Leah entered the study with a sheepish look, followed by Ethan, clutching his backpack. "Mr. Caldwell, I apologize. My sitter canceled last minute and I didn't have another option." Ryan glanced up, his eyes narrowing slightly at the boy. "Does he follow instructions as well as you do?" "I try," Ethan piped up before Leah could respond. Ryan's gaze lingered on the boy's curious eyes, then shifted back to Leah. "He stays out of the way, and quiet." "Yes, sir," Ethan promised eagerly. As Leah set Ethan up in the library with his homework, Ryan continued working. But it wasn't long before the boy wandered back into the study, his wide eyes fixed on Ryan's wheelchair. "Is that a Permobil F5?" Ethan blurted out, his excitement breaking the silence. Ryan looked up, momentarily caught off guard. "It is. How do you know that?" "I did my science project on assistive technologies last year," Ethan explained, stepping closer. "Does it really have memory seating positions? Can you control it with your phone? What's the battery life like?" Leah started to intervene, but Ryan held up a hand, intrigued by the boy's enthusiasm. "Would you like to see how it works?" Ethan's face lit up. "Really? Mom, can I?" Leah hesitated, glancing between her son and Ryan, whose usually guarded expression had softened. 30 minutes, she relented. Then back to homework. For the next half hour, Ryan gave Ethan a detailed demonstration of the wheelchair's features. He explained the controls, the customizable settings, and even the standing function that allowed him to reach higher shelves. Ethan hung on every word, asking questions that Ryan answered with surprising patience. "So, could someone hack it?" Ethan asked, his curiosity unfiltered. Leah's voice shot out. "Ethan!" But Ryan chuckled, a rare sound Leah hadn't expected. "Technically, yes, though it would void the warranty." Ethan grinned. "Cool. Can I program it to do something custom?" "Homework first," Leah said firmly, trying to suppress a smile. Ryan nodded in agreement. "The library computer has simulation software. You can use it during your next visit, if your mother approves." Ethan's eyes lit up again and he turned to Leah. "Mom, please?" "We'll see," Leah replied, unable to resist his hopeful expression. Later, as Leah brought Ryan his coffee, she hesitated before speaking. "Thank you for being kind to him. He's a remarkable kid," Ryan said simply, sipping his coffee. "He doesn't see the chair as a limitation, just technology to be explored. It's refreshing." Leah straightened a stack of papers on his desk, hiding her smile. "He sees things differently. Always has." Ryan glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "Like mother, like son." It started as a routine security check. Leah was inspecting the emergency exits when she noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. It wasn't on the floor plans she'd reviewed, and curiosity got the better of her. The door opened easily, revealing a room that seemed frozen in time. Black and white sketches of cityscapes and blueprints lined the walls. The centerpiece was a large drafting table, covered in half-finished designs and expensive tools, all coated in a thin layer of dust. "You shouldn't be in here." Ryan's sharp voice made Leah jump. She turned to see him in the doorway, his knuckles white as they gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. "I'm sorry," Leah said quickly. "It wasn't on the floor plan, and I thought it might be a safety issue." "It's not part of your responsibilities," he snapped. "Close the door." Leah hesitated, her eyes drawn back to the room. "This was your studio, wasn't it?" "It's irrelevant," Ryan said coldly, wheeling forward to block her view. "The room needs to be cleared out." "Why?" she asked softly, refusing to back down. His jaw tightened. "Because I can't use the equipment anymore? Or had you failed to notice my condition?" Leah folded her arms, standing her ground. "I noticed the modified drafting tools, the adjusted grips, the motorized table. Someone went to great lengths to make this space accessible. Did you really stop using it because you couldn't? Or because it was harder?" Ryan laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Ms. Simmons?" "My job," Leah replied, meeting his gaze, "which includes understanding why my employer has locked away part of himself." Silence hung between them, thick and charged. Finally, Ryan wheeled closer, his voice low and sharp. "You want to know why? Because every time I sit at that table, my hands shake. Because the designs I use to create now take me twice as long. Because every attempt reminds me of what I've lost." Leah stepped forward, her voice steady. "And every time you lock that door, you remind yourself of what you've given up." His eyes blazed with anger, but he didn't respond. Leah gestured to the room. "You once fought to adapt this space. Why not fight to use it? No one's asking you to be the same as before, Ryan. Just to try." He stared at her for a long moment before speaking quietly, almost to himself. "It's not the same." "No," Leah agreed. "But different doesn't mean worse. It just means finding a new way to create." Ryan didn't respond as Leah stepped past him, leaving the door open. "In case you decide to revisit it," she said over her shoulder. As she walked away, she thought she heard him murmur, "Thank you." She didn't turn around, deciding some victories didn't need acknowledgement. The sharp beep of the thermometer broke the silence of the dimly lit room. Leah's heart sank as the screen displayed 103.2 DHF. Ryan lay motionless in his bed, his face pale and covered in sweat, his breathing labored. She reached for her phone, dialing the emergency line with practiced urgency. "Yes." "This is Leah Simmons, caregiver for Ryan Caldwell. His fever spiked to 103, his breathing is shallow and he's barely responsive. We need an ambulance immediately." After ending the call, Leah pressed a cool cloth to Ryan's forehead, murmuring softly, "Stay with me, Ryan. Help is on the way." His eyelids fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. "Leah?" he mumbled, his voice weak. "I'm here," she whispered, her fingers brushing his damp hair away from his face. "Don't leave." His voice cracked, barely audible, but the desperation in it was undeniable. Leah froze for a moment as the words hit her like a blow. His hand, trembling and weak, found hers, holding on as if afraid she might vanish. "I won't," she promised, her voice breaking slightly. For the next hour, Leah hovered at his side, her training taking over. She monitored his vitals, adjusted his blankets, and whispered reassurances. But underneath her professional focus, her heart pounded with emotions she couldn't quite name. When the paramedics arrived, Leah rattled off Ryan's medical history and current symptoms, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I'll follow in my car," she told them as they prepared to transport him. It wasn't until she sat alone in the hospital waiting room, her hands trembling in her lap, that the realization hit her. Ryan's whispered plea, his vulnerability, and her own overwhelming need to stay by his side. This wasn't just duty anymore. Somewhere along the way, she had stopped seeing him as just her patient. She cared about him, deeply. When the doctor finally emerged to say Ryan was stable, Leah let out a shaky breath, her chest tightening with relief. She stepped into his hospital room, and as she sat by his bed, her hand instinctively reached for his. "I'm not going anywhere," she murmured, the truth of her words sinking in. The first rays of dawn filtered through the hospital blinds as Leah stirred in her chair, her fingers still entwined with Ryan's. His breathing had steadied during the night, and the fever had finally broken. Ryan stirred, his eyes fluttering open to find Leah at his side. For a moment he seemed disoriented, then his gaze softened. "You stayed," he murmured, his voice hoarse. Leah smiled faintly, brushing her hair back from her tired face. "Of course I did. I told you I wouldn't leave." Ryan studied her, his expression unreadable. "You've done more than anyone else ever has. You could have walked away last night. Why didn't you?" Leah hesitated, the truth hovering on her lips. "Because I care," she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's hand tightened slightly around hers. "You don't have to take this on, Leah. I know what I am. A burden." Her eyes flashed, and she leaned closer. "You're not a burden, Ryan. You're stubborn and frustrating, yes, but you're also brilliant, kind, and capable of more than you give yourself credit for." His lips quirked into the faintest of smiles. "I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a reprimand." "It's both," she replied with a soft laugh. The door opened, and a nurse entered, breaking the moment. Leah stood, reluctantly letting go of his hand. "I'll give them some space to check on you." As she turned to leave, Ryan's voice stopped her. "Leah." She turned back, meeting his gaze. "I'm glad you stayed." Leah's heart fluttered, but she managed a steady smile. "Me too." As she walked down the hospital corridor, the realization settled over her fully. She didn't just care about Ryan, she was falling for him. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of where that path might lead. The sun poured warmly over the sprawling estate as Ryan sat on the patio, his wheelchair angled toward the garden. The early spring blossoms danced in the gentle breeze, their vibrant colors reflecting the changes he felt within himself. Leah emerged from the house, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. She handed one to Ryan before settling into the chair beside him. "You're getting better at pacing yourself," she teased, gesturing toward the empty sketch pad on the table. Ryan chuckled, a sound that had become more frequent since his return from the hospital. "I had a good motivator," he replied, his eyes softening as they met hers. Leah smiled, sipping her coffee. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken words. "I've been thinking," Ryan began, his tone suddenly serious. Leah raised an eyebrow. "That's usually dangerous." He smirked, but quickly grew earnest. "You've given me more than I ever thought I'd have again, Leah. A reason to try, a reason to push past what I thought were limits. You've done so much for me." Leah set her mug down, sensing the weight of his words. "Ryan, you've done just as much for yourself. You've rebuilt your life, your work, your passion. It's all you." "It's not just me," he said, shaking his head slightly. "It's you." "And Ethan." Leah blinked, startled as Ryan shifted slightly in his wheelchair, his hand disappearing into his pocket. When he pulled out a small velvet box, her breath caught. "Ryan," her voice trailed off as he opened it, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "I know I'm not the easiest person to deal with," he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his expression. "But I also know that I don't want to spend another day without you, or Ethan. I want us to be a family, Leah." Her breath caught as she stared at him, her heart pounding. "I'm asking you to marry me," Ryan continued, his gaze unwavering. "To bring Ethan here so we can make this house a home. For all of us." Tears welled in Leah's eyes as she laughed softly, shaking her head. "You really don't do anything halfway, do you?" "Not when it comes to you," he replied, his voice warm. Leah stood, stepping closer to him. She took the ring from the box, her hands trembling slightly as she slipped it onto her finger. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Ryan." Ryan exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, his smile brighter than she had ever seen. Leah leaned down, wrapping her arms around him as their foreheads touched. "Ethan's going to love this," she said with a tearful laugh. Ryan smirked. "I'm more worried about whether he'll approve of my science trivia skills." Leah laughed, brushing her lips against his. "We'll make it work. Together." As the garden blooms swayed in the wind, the promise of a new chapter unfolded. A family born not out of perfection, but out of love, resilience, and the courage to build something beautiful together.